Hey guys, tonight we're not going to be swept up in thunderous battles or dramatic chases. Instead, we're going to settle into a very ancient, very quiet corner of the Greek world, listening for the soft whispers of the earth itself. Imagine, if you will, a time before the Olympian gods built their gleaming palaces, when the world was still raw, freshly emerged from chaos, and ruled by even older, more fundamental forces. We're delving into ancient Earth's earliest guardians, exploring how the primordial Earth Gaia bore monstrous chthonic inhabitants who were not always malevolent, but simply ancient, vast, and deeply connected to the very core of the planet. You probably won't survive this journey awake, but that's entirely the point, isn't it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now, down in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're at the very, very dawn of time, after chaos, after the emergence of Gaia, the earth, in this nascent world, before the sky was fully separated, or the seas completely defined. Gaia began to produce children, some majestic, like the Titans, and others far more primal and monstrous, born from the very essence of the deep earth. These are the chthonic beings often associated with the underworld, the soil, and the mysterious depths beneath the surface. They are vast, ancient, and possess an elemental power that predates the more human-like gods of Olympus. These earliest guardians weren't necessarily evil in the way later monsters would be. Instead, they were often simply there, embodying the untamed primeval forces of the nascent world. They were the original inhabitants, deeply rooted in the land, guarding its secrets and its ancient powers. They often served as protectors of sacred sites, or as conduits for the earth's most ancient prophecies. Imagine vast serpents, their coils stretching across valleys, or shadowy figures emerging from fissures in the ground. These are the children of Gaia, the embodiment of her raw, untamed power. They include dragons and serpents. Many ancient Greek myths feature powerful, often immense, serpentine creatures. These weren't just animals. They were primeval forces, often associated with wisdom, prophecy, and guarding sacred places. The python. Our focus tonight is one such example, a colossal serpent born from the very mud left after a great flood. Giants, Gigantes, born from Gaia. Sometimes after Uranus's mutilation, these powerful, often crude beings were deeply connected to the earth, representing its raw, untamed power. Other earth-born creatures, various other monstrous or powerful beings, sometimes local deities or guardians, sprang directly from the soil, reflecting the vast creative and sometimes terrifying fecundity of Gaia. These beings predated the Olympian gods by generations. They represented an older order, a time when the earth herself was the primary source of power and prophecy. Their existence was intrinsically linked to the land their knowledge rooted in the deep past. They were often solitary, territorial, and imbued with an immense quiet power that resonated with the very ground you walked upon. For the ancient Greeks, the presence of these beings explained the wild, untamed aspects of the natural world, the mysterious rumblings of the earth, and the ancient primal fears that stirred in the deepest parts of the human soul. They were a reminder of a time when the world was less ordered, less civilized, and more directly under the sway of elemental forces. One quirky tidbit. Sometimes these chthonic beings were depicted as having access to wisdom or prophecy that even the Olympian gods did not initially possess, simply by virtue of their ancient origins and deep connection to Gaia. This hints at a respectful, almost reverent understanding of the older powers of the world. Historians still argue whether the concept of these ancient earth-born guardians reflects a very early animistic belief system that predated the anthropomorphic Olympian pantheon, or if they were narrative devices to explain the wild, untamed aspects of nature. Either way, they were the world's original inhabitants. So, as you prepare to drift off, consider the ancient earth, vast and mysterious, giving birth to its earliest primordial guardians. These immense quiet beings, deeply rooted in the very essence of the planet, guarded its secrets and its power, setting the stage for the subtle shift in cosmic order that would bring a new era of gods to power. The ground beneath you is still, and the whispers of ancient beings are growing faint. You've just been introduced to the earliest vast guardians of the ancient earth, primordial beings deeply rooted in the planet's very essence. Among these primeval forces, specific locations on Gaia's surface became imbued with immense ancient power, serving as conduits for prophecy and connecting the mortal realm to the cosmic deep. This brings us to Gaia's sacred sites. Delphi's Omphalos, detailing Delphi as a primordial, earth-centered oracle, long before Apollo made it his own, a place where the very ground whispered secrets from the ancient world. Imagine standing on a sacred spot, feeling the tremors of the earth's ancient wisdom beneath your feet. You see, even before the Olympians ruled the earth herself, Gaia was considered a source of profound wisdom and prophecy. She was the original oracle, deriving her knowledge from the deepest, most ancient parts of the cosmos. Certain locations on her surface, places where the chthonic energies were particularly strong, became sacred sites, focal points for this primordial wisdom. Among these, one site stood out as Paramount Delphi. Imagine a high rocky slope on Mount Parnassus, overlooking a breathtaking valley. This was not just a scenic spot. It was believed to be the Omphalos, the navel of the world, the very center of the earth. A conical stone, often adorned with carvings, marked this sacred spot, symbolizing its cosmic significance. The presence of a deep chasm or fissure within the rock at Delphi was believed to be the source of mysterious vapors that emanated from the earth, allowing mortals to commune with Gaia's ancient wisdom. Before Apollo's arrival, Delphi was primarily a sanctuary of Gaia herself, and, later, of her daughter, the Titaness Themis, goddess of divine law and justice. These primordial goddesses were the original oracles of Delphi, their prophecies flowing directly from the ancient wisdom of the earth. The priestess who delivered these prophecies would often sit upon a tripod over the chasm, inhaling the sacred vapors and delivering pronouncements from Gaia herself. The power of Delphi as an oracle was immense, drawing seekers from far and wide, even in its earliest primordial phase. People sought advice on everything from agricultural matters to personal dilemmas, believing that the earth, the source of all life, held the deepest truths. The presence of a monstrous serpent, like the python, guarding this ancient chthonic oracle, was also a common motif signifying its raw, untamed, and deeply primeval power. The serpent was not necessarily an enemy of Gaia. It was often seen as her ancient wise guardian, a natural extension of the earth's wild, untamed nature. This earlier earth-centered phase of Delphi is crucial to understanding the later conflict with Apollo. It was a site of ancient authority, a place where the old gods held sway, where prophecy resonated with the deepest rumblings of the planet itself. It was a testament to the fact that power and wisdom in the Greek cosmos existed long before the thunderbolts of Zeus or the lyre of Apollo. One quirky tidbit: the very idea of a navel of the world was a powerful symbolic concept in many ancient cultures, suggesting a central, umbilical connection to creation itself. The omphalos stone at Delphi reinforced this profound cosmic link. Historians still argue whether Delphi's early history as a Gaia Themis oracle reflects a genuine pre-Olympian religious stratum, or if it was a narrative construction to legitimize Apollo's later takeover by connecting him to the site's ancient foundational sacredness. Either way, its primordial origins are undeniable. So, as you prepare to drift off, imagine yourself standing at Delphi before any temples of gleaming marble, feeling the raw ancient power emanating from the earth. It is a place where Gaia herself whispered secrets guarded by primeval forces, setting the stage for the gentle yet inevitable arrival of a new, radiant god who would claim its sacred wisdom for his own. The ancient whispers are slowly fading now. You've just felt the ancient earthy power of Delphi, Gaia's primordial oracle, a place guarded by chthonic forces. Among these ancient denizens, one colossal serpentine entity held dominion, embodying the untamed primeval nature of the site itself. This brings us to the python's reign, primeval terror, detailing the monstrous serpent born from primeval mud and its undisputed, albeit quiet, initial dominion over Delphi, a vast creature of immense power that existed long before the Olympian gods sought to tame the wild places of the world. Imagine a colossal snake, its immense coils wrapped around the very heart of the earth's oracle, a truly ancient and imposing guardian. You see, the python. Python was a monstrous, enormous serpent, typically described as being female, born from the slime and mud left on the earth after the great deluge, the flood sent by Zeus to end the Bronze Age. This origin links her directly to the primordial, untamed forces of nature, to the raw, fertile, and sometimes destructive power of the earth itself. She was a chthonic creature, through and through, belonging to the ancient order of Gaia. The python resided at Delphi, guarding the sacred omphalos, the navel of the world, and serving as the ancient oracle of Gaia and Themis. She was not necessarily malevolent in the human sense, but rather a force of nature, a vast, powerful entity that inspired awe and fear due to her sheer size, strength, and primordial connection to the Earth's deepest energies. Her presence at Delphi meant that the prophecies emanating from the site were untamed, raw, and deeply connected to the ancient wisdom of the planet, unmediated by any younger, more anthropomorphic gods. Imagine her immense coils, perhaps wrapped around the sacred chasm, her scales glinting in the dim light of the cavern. Her breath might have mingled with the geological vapors emanating from the earth, contributing to the intoxicating atmosphere of the oracle. Her reign was one of unchallenged authority over this ancient sacred place. Mortals would approach her lair with immense trepidation, seeking her wisdom, fully aware of the colossal reptilian power they were facing. The python represented the untamed wilderness, the raw, undifferentiated power of the primeval world. Her dominion at Delphi symbolized a time when the Earth's ancient, often fearsome forces were supreme before the Olympians asserted their order and established their own more human-centric domains. Her presence was a reminder that cosmic power flowed from the deepest parts of the planet, from the very beginning of existence. One quirky tidbit: some accounts connect the python to Hera, saying she was sent by the goddess to pursue Leto, Apollo's mother. This connection, however, is often conflated with Apollo's later pursuit of the python, and not necessarily inherent to her primordial role as Gaia's guardian. Historians still argue whether the python was primarily seen as a benevolent guardian of Gaia's oracle, or a monstrous threat that needed to be overcome to establish a new, more civilized, divine order. It was likely a blend, a representation of wild, ancient power that eventually came into conflict with the new. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the colossal python, a vast serpent born from primeval mud, its immense coils wrapped around the sacred heart of Delphi. This ancient guardian reigned supreme, embodying the wild, untamed power of the early earth, patiently awaiting the quiet, inevitable arrival of the new, radiant God who would seek to claim its ancient wisdom for his own. The ancient earth is still, and its primeval guardian breathes slowly, peacefully. You've just immersed yourself in the primeval reign of the python, the colossal serpent guarding Gaia's ancient oracle at Delphi. Now, as the old order quietly holds sway, a new force is destined to emerge, one associated with light music and a different kind of prophecy. This brings us to Apollo's birth light into darkness, detailing the circumstances of his remarkable arrival into the world, foreshadowing his connection to divine clarity and his eventual claim over sacred spaces like Delphi. Imagine a serene delivery marking the dawn of a new, radiant god. You see, Apollo's birth was not without its own set of divine complications, stemming directly from the relentless jealousy of Hera. His mother was Leto, a gentle titaness who had conceived twins by Zeus. Hera, consumed by her perpetual fury over Zeus's infidelities, mercilessly pursued Leto across the entire world, preventing her from finding any land that would offer her sanctuary to give birth. Every solid piece of earth, fearing Hera's wrath, refused to host the birth of Zeus's children. Imagine the gentle Leto, heavily pregnant, wandering restlessly across the vast landscapes and turbulent seas, desperate for a place to finally bring her children into the world. Her suffering was immense, a testament to Hera's cruel ingenuity. Finally, she found refuge on the small, barren, floating island of Delos. Some versions say Delos was persuaded by Zeus or Poseidon to offer sanctuary, or that it was not truly fixed to the seabed, thus not being land in the sense that Hera had forbidden. Here, after 9 days and 9 nights of labor, and with the aid of the goddess Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth, Leto finally gave birth to her first child, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt and wild animals. And then, without further struggle, she gave birth to her radiant twin, Apollo. Apollo was born on Delos, a luminous event that filled the island with golden light. He was quickly associated with light truth and clarity. His very nature seemed to push back against the darkness and confusion that often plagued the ancient world. His birth symbolized the dawn of a new era, one where truth and reason manifested through prophecy and divine law would begin to illuminate the chaotic primordial forces. From his earliest moments, Apollo was destined for greatness. He was swiftly nourished with ambrosia and nectar, the divine food and drink that quickly matured him and imbued him with immense power. As soon as he consumed these celestial delights, he instantly transformed from an infant into a powerful youth, ready to embrace his divine responsibilities. He immediately laid claim to his signature attributes, the lyre, symbolizing music, harmony, and poetry, and the bow and arrows, symbolizing his precision, distant strike, and later his role as a bringer of plague and healing. His initial connection to prophecy was inherent in his being. He was the god of truth, of foresight, and of divine inspiration. This innate connection to prophecy would naturally draw him towards ancient oracular sites, particularly Delphi, which was still under the dominion of the primeval Python. His radiant birth on a floating island, a place of transient stability, marked him as a god who would bring order to the fluid ancient world. One quirky tidbit about Apollo's birth. The island of Delos, once barren and floating, became fixed and sacred after his birth, a testament to the transformative power of a god's arrival. It became a significant cult center for Apollo. Historians still argue whether Apollo's association with light and truth was a natural evolution of his solar aspects, or if it was deliberately cultivated to contrast with older chthonic deities who were seen as more dark and mysterious. Either way, his radiant birth set him apart. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the gentle Leto giving birth to the radiant Apollo on the quiet island of Delos, filling the dawn with golden light. His arrival marked the beginning of a new divine era, a shift from ancient shadows to Olympian clarity, preparing the cosmic stage for his peaceful yet decisive encounter with the formidable primeval Python. The soft glow of his birth now settles over you. You've just witnessed the radiant birth of Apollo on Delos, a luminous event that heralded the arrival of a new powerful god of light and truth. But this joyful occasion was, as we hinted, shadowed by the relentless malice of Zeus's jealous wife. This brings us to Hera's jealous pursuit of Leto, detailing the vengeful queen of the gods' merciless harassment of Apollo's gentle mother, an enduring testament to divine spite that inadvertently sets the stage for Apollo's eventual claim over Delphi. Imagine a powerful goddess consumed by fury, chasing a pregnant woman across the entire known world, never allowing her a moment of peace. You see, Hera, the queen of the gods, was notoriously jealous of Zeus's numerous infidelities. And when she discovered that Leto, a quiet and unassuming titaness, was pregnant with Zeus's children, her rage knew no bounds. She unleashed a relentless, cruel persecution upon Leto, a divine vendetta designed to prevent the birth of Apollo and Artemis, or at the very least, to make their mother suffer immensely. Hera's primary tactic was to curse Leto, proclaiming that no land under the sun would receive her or allow her to give birth. Imagine the terror and desperation of Leto, heavily pregnant with divine twins, wandering endlessly across the vast Greek world. Every piece of solid earth, every island, every continent feared Hera's wrath and refused to offer sanctuary. The physical and emotional toll on Leto must have been immense, a ceaseless torment of relentless pursuit. Beyond her direct curse, Hera also employed other agents of her malice. In some versions of the myth, she sent the monstrous serpent Python to relentlessly pursue Leto, snapping at her heels and terrifying her wherever she went. This detail links Hera's jealousy directly to the monster that Apollo would later defeat, establishing a direct connection between Apollo's birth circumstances and his future heroic deed. The python was not merely a guardian. It was, in part, Hera's instrument of torment. Imagine Leto perpetually on the run, exhausted and in agonizing labor, constantly having to move with the terrifying coils of the python, or the threat of its pursuit always looming. The very act of finding a quiet, stable place for childbirth, a fundamental need for any mother, was denied to her by Hera's boundless spite. It was only the small, barren, and floating island of Delos that dared to defy Hera's decree, either because it was not truly land, or because it was convinced by Zeus or Poseidon to offer sanctuary. There, after excruciating suffering, Leto finally found the brief respite needed to give birth to her divine twins. The golden light that accompanied Apollo's birth was not just a symbol of his radiant nature, but also a beacon of triumph over the darkness of Hera's relentless persecution. This relentless pursuit by Hera and the suffering it inflicted on Leto instilled in Apollo and Artemis a profound sense of loyalty to their mother and a deep-seated resentment towards Hera. It also gave Apollo a personal stake in subduing the forces of chaos and establishing order, particularly at places associated with Hera's agents like the python. His destiny was forged in his mother's suffering. One quirky tidbit: some myths suggest that Hera's jealousy was so intense that she also held Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, captive on Mount Olympus, preventing her from assisting Leto, thus prolonging her labor for days. This emphasizes the extreme lengths to which Hera would go to inflict suffering. Historians still argue whether Hera's jealousy in these myths serves to simply explain the origins of hero cycles, or if it reflects deeper patriarchal anxieties about powerful female deities and their rivalries. Either way, her spite was undeniably a major driving force in the early divine dramas. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the gentle Leto pursued relentlessly across the world by the furious Hera, desperate to find a moment of peace to give birth. This divine harassment, this tireless spite, ultimately leads to Apollo's fated arrival and sets him on a path towards confronting the very forces that tormented his mother, including the formidable python. The echoes of a goddess's anger are now softly fading into the quiet of the night. You've just heard the tale of Hera's relentless pursuit of Leto, a divine harassment that forced Apollo's birth onto the barren island of Delos. Born into this atmosphere of cosmic conflict, Apollo, now a rapidly matured deity of light and prophecy, needed a place to truly establish his domain, a permanent seat for his burgeoning power. This brings us to Apollo's quest for a domain, explaining his inherent need for a sacred space, free from the influence of older, more primordial powers, a place where his unique attributes could flourish and his prophecies could resonate with clarity. Imagine a young radiant god seeking his rightful place in the vast, still-forming cosmos. You see, while Zeus had established his rule on Mount Olympus and divided the primary realms among himself, Poseidon, and Hades, many sacred places on earth still held allegiance to older deities, to Gaia, or to the Titans. For Apollo, a god associated with order, light music, and the precise delivery of prophecy, establishing his own unambiguous sphere of influence, was crucial for legitimizing his authority and fulfilling his divine purpose. Apollo's inherent desire for a domain stemmed from several aspects of his nature. His connection to prophecy. As the god of truth and prophecy, Apollo needed a renowned oracle, a place where he could deliver his pronouncements to mortals without interference from older chthonic forces, whose prophecies were often seen as more wild or ambiguous. He represented a new era of clear, enlightened foresight. His pursuit of order, following the chaotic reign of the Titans and the turmoil of his mother's pursuit, Apollo embodied a striving for order and harmony. He sought to bring the light of reason and clear judgment to the wilder, more untamed aspects of the world. A sacred domain would be a place where this divine order could manifest. His youth and ambition. As a powerful young god, Apollo naturally sought to establish his own authority and influence within the new Olympian pantheon. Claiming a prominent sacred site would be a significant step in asserting his power and demonstrating his divine capabilities, his need for stability. Having been born on a floating island and witnessing his mother's ceaseless flight, Apollo likely desired a fixed, unshakable sanctuary, a contrast to the transient nature of his birth. The prime candidate for such a domain was already well-established Delphi. We've already discussed its ancient origins as Gaia's oracle guarded by the immense serpent Python. This site held immense primordial power, its prophecies flowing from the very depths of the earth. For Apollo, claiming Delphi wasn't just about finding a home. It was about asserting Olympian authority over an ancient chthonic power, integrating the old with the new and establishing his own, more ordered form of prophecy. His quest was therefore not merely about territorial acquisition. It was a symbolic act, a transition from an older, wilder form of prophecy to a more structured, precise, and visually appealing one associated with his radiant persona. It was about bringing the light of Apollo's wisdom to a place steeped in ancient darkness and primeval energy. One quirky tidbit: some myths suggest that even at a young age, Apollo possessed an innate desire to bring justice and order. His quest for a domain was in a way part of his broader mission to civilize the wild world and establish divine law. Historians still argue whether Apollo's quest for a domain was a preordained destiny or if it reflected the historical expansion of his cult across Greece, eventually eclipsing older local deities and their sacred sites. Either way, Delphi, with its ancient power and formidable guardian, became his ultimate target. So as you drift toward sleep, picture the youthful, radiant Apollo, his bow and lyre now at his side, embarking on a quest not just for land, but for destiny. His search for a domain, particularly the ancient powerful oracle of Delphi, would inevitably bring him into a quiet yet decisive confrontation with the primeval forces of the earth, slowly paving the way for his ascendancy and the establishment of his serene, boring, prophetic reign. The gentle urge for a home is guiding him forward. You've just seen Apollo, newly mature and radiant, embarking on his quest for a divine domain, setting his sights on the ancient earth-centered oracle of Delphi. His journey there was not just a mere traverse of land. It was a symbolic passage towards a place steeped in primordial power and guarded by an ancient entity. This brings us to Journey to the Omphalos Delphi, detailing Apollo's deliberate travel towards this sacred pre-existing site, an approach marked by a certain reverence for its ancient origins, even as he prepared to assert his own new order. Imagine a young god, guided by destiny, making his way to the very heart of the earth's ancient wisdom. You see, Apollo's journey to Delphi was purposeful. He wasn't merely wandering. He was drawn to this particular site by his very nature as a god of prophecy and light, destined to establish his most famous oracle here. He knew of its ancient power, its history as the seat of Gaia's wisdom, and the presence of the formidable Python. His arrival was not an accidental stumble, but a fated confrontation. The path to Delphi was often depicted as rugged and wild, a journey that might have taken him through untamed landscapes, reflecting the very nature of the forces he was about to confront. He would have observed the changing terrain, the sacred groves, and the natural springs that dotted the landscape leading up to Mount Parnassus. This journey allowed him to absorb the essence of the land, connecting him to the older powers of Gaia in a subtle way. Apollo approached Delphi with a mixture of reverence for its ancient sanctity and a clear intent to establish his own authority. He was not coming as a reckless conqueror, but as a new manifestation of divine order, intending to integrate the old wisdom with his new, clearer form of prophecy. He understood the profound significance of the Omphalos, the navel of the world, and recognized that this was the ideal place for his oracle, a central point from which his truth could emanate across the world. His journey, though perhaps swift for a god, was marked by its singular purpose to claim this powerful place. He carried his newly acquired attributes, his shining bow and quiver of arrows, symbols of his precision and distant striking power, and perhaps the lyre symbolizing his harmony and ability to soothe. These tools represented the new ordered power he brought, a contrast to the wild, untamed nature of the Python and the ancient chthonic forces. Upon reaching the sacred slopes of Delphi, he would have perceived the raw ancient energy emanating from the chasm and undoubtedly sensed the powerful presence of the Python, the immense serpent that had guarded Gaia's oracle for ages. This was the moment of reckoning, the prelude to the inevitable, gentle, yet decisive confrontation between the ancient primeval power and the new Olympian order. One quirky tidbit about Delphi's setting: the area around Mount Parnassus was home to various mythical creatures and powerful spirits, making Apollo's journey not just a trek, but a passage through a landscape imbued with ancient magic. Historians still argue whether Apollo's establishment at Delphi was a peaceful transition, where he absorbed existing cults, or a more violent overthrow that was later softened in myth. The narrative of his defeat of the Python suggests a definite struggle, but its eventual outcome cemented his reign. So, as you drift toward sleep, picture the youthful, radiant Apollo, his journey bringing him closer and closer to the ancient sacred heart of Delphi. He approaches with calm determination, his very presence a harbinger of a new era of prophecy and order, ready for his quiet, inevitable encounter with the formidable primeval guardian. The ground beneath you feels steady, and the journey is softly ending. You've just accompanied Apollo on his purposeful journey to Delphi, arriving at the sacred Omphalos, the heart of the earth's ancient oracle. Here, he encountered the colossal primeval guardian who had reigned undisturbed for ages. This brings us to the confrontation, a quiet approach detailing Apollo's initial encounter with the formidable Python, an interaction characterized not by immediate thunderous battle, but by a calm, almost serene assertion of new divine authority over an ancient, established power. Imagine a subtle tension, a quiet standoff between radiant order and primordial might. You see, upon reaching Delphi, Apollo was immediately confronted by the Python. This was no surprise to him. He knew of the monstrous serpent, its ancient lineage, and its long dominion over the sacred site. The Python, in turn, would have sensed the arrival of a powerful new god, one who emanated light and a different kind of order than the earthy prophecies it had long guarded. However, the confrontation was not necessarily a sudden dramatic clash from the outset. Imagine Apollo, bathed in his radiant light, standing before the immense coils of the Python. The serpent, vast and ancient, would likely have stirred, perhaps raising its colossal head, its eyes if it had them, or perhaps metaphorical ones, fixing on this new, bright presence. There was no need for a roaring challenge or a dramatic declaration of war. Their very existence in the same space was a confrontation of two different cosmic eras. Apollo's approach was characterized by his inherent attributes: clarity, precision, and serene authority. He didn't rush in with reckless abandon. Instead, he made his presence known, a stark contrast to the shadowy earthbound power of the Python. His light would have pierced the eternal gloom of the Python's lair, subtly disrupting the ancient order. His primary tools in this quiet confrontation were his newly acquired bow and arrows. These were not crude weapons, but instruments of divine precision, forged in some myths by Hephaestus or the Cyclopes, to deliver swift, accurate strikes over long distances. He did not immediately loose a volley of arrows in a furious assault. Instead, his initial movements would have been calm, measured, an almost elegant display of readiness, asserting his readiness to enforce the new order without necessarily needing to engage in a drawn-out, noisy battle. The Python, ancient and imbued with the primordial wisdom of Gaia, would have responded with its vast, slow power. It might have hissed its immense body, shifting its coils, perhaps tightening around the omphalos stone, a silent challenge to the encroaching new order. Its movements would be ponderous, reflecting its deep connection to the unhurried rhythms of the earth. This initial phase of the confrontation was a test of wills, a silent assertion of dominance. Apollo, with his radiant presence and his poised bow, was signaling that the era of unchallenged primeval rule was ending. The Python, with its immense ancient power, was the last great guardian of that old order, and its very being presented a formidable, if quiet, barrier to Apollo's claim. One quirky tidbit about this initial encounter: some accounts describe the Python as being more like a primordial force of chaos or pollution rather than a truly sentient monster, meaning Apollo's confrontation was as much about cleansing the site as it was about defeating an enemy. Historians still argue whether Apollo's battle with the Python was meant to symbolize the triumph of solar-ordered religion over older chthonic cults, or if it was a narrative simply to explain the origin of the Pythian games and the Delphic oracle. Either way, the encounter sets the stage for a change. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the youthful, radiant Apollo standing calmly before the immense ancient coils of the Python at Delphi. The air is thick with unspoken tension, a silent assertion of authority against primeval power. This quiet confrontation marks the beginning of the end for the old order, paving the way for Apollo's serene, boring, prophetic reign over the world's most famous oracle. The ancient guardian breathes slowly, peacefully, for now. You have just witnessed the quiet, yet tense, initial standoff between the radiant Apollo and the formidable primeval Python at Delphi. Before we delve into their actual conflict, it's crucial to understand the very essence of the adversary Apollo faced. This brings us to the Python's ancient power, elaborating on the serpent's immense natural and elemental strength, a force deeply rooted in the primordial earth, making it a formidable opponent not simply by virtue of its monstrous size, but by its very ancient being. Imagine a creature whose power flowed directly from the core of the planet itself. You see, the Python wasn't just a large snake. It was a chthonic entity, born from the raw, fertile mud, left by the Great Flood, directly linking it to Gaia, the primordial earth. Its power was not derived from divine lineage in the Olympian sense, but from its fundamental connection to the planet's deepest, most ancient energies. This made it a unique kind of adversary for Apollo, a challenge that went beyond mere physical strength. The python's ancient power manifested in several ways: immeasurable size and strength. While exact dimensions vary, the python was always described as colossal, its coils vast enough to encompass a significant portion of the Delphic site. Its sheer physical might derived from its enormous serpentine body made it a terrifying force to confront in close quarters. Imagine the crushing power of its coils, the raw force of its movements, like the shifting of the very earth. Primordial origins. Its birth from the earth's primal elements imbued it with an inherent raw power. It was an embodiment of the untamed wilderness, the untamed aspects of nature that existed before the Olympian gods imposed their order. Its strength was ancient, fundamental, and deeply resonant with the wild, uncultivated forces of the world. Prophetic connection. As the guardian of Gaia's original oracle at Delphi, the python was intrinsically linked to ancient prophecy. Its presence at the Omphalos stone meant it held access to the earth's deep wisdom, making it a spiritual as well as physical obstacle for Apollo. Its power wasn't just physical, it was tied to ancient knowledge and foresight. Defensive nature. The python wasn't usually depicted as an aggressive, attacking monster seeking to devour people indiscriminately, though its presence naturally inspired terror. Instead, it was primarily a guardian protecting the sacred site of Delphi, fulfilling a role for Gaia. Its power was often about maintaining the status quo, repelling intruders, and preserving the ancient established order of the Earth Oracle. Resistance to change. Being ancient and deeply connected to the old order, the python represented a formidable force of resistance to the new, more ordered and light-infused power that Apollo embodied. Its power was one of inertia, of deep-rooted permanence, making it slow to move, but incredibly difficult to dislodge. This elemental power meant that a direct conventional assault might not be enough. The python was not a monster that could be simply outsmarted with cunning words or overwhelmed by mere speed. Its strength was fundamental, like the slow, inexorable shifting of tectonic plates, making its defeat a true assertion of a new cosmic authority. One quirky tidbit some myths suggest: the python could also exhale noxious fumes, connecting its power to the mysterious earth-emanating vapors of the Delphic chasm that inspired prophecy. This further blurred the lines between the creature itself and the natural phenomena of the site. Historians still argue whether the python was truly an evil, chaotic force, or simply an older, wilder power that needed to be integrated or overcome by the new Olympian order to bring about a more civilized form of divine governance. Either way, its presence at Delphi marked it as a profoundly significant ancient obstacle. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the colossal python, its immense coils radiating the ancient elemental power of the earth itself. It is a creature of vast, quiet strength, an embodiment of primeval wisdom, guarding the world's most sacred oracle. Its immense inherent power is now settling around you slowly and gently as the quiet confrontation with the young god of light unfolds. You've just immersed yourself in the immense ancient power of the python, a creature deeply rooted in the primordial earth, guarding its sacred oracle. Now, as Apollo stands calmly before this formidable, primeval force, he is not empty-handed. He carries the very symbols of his authority and the instruments of the new ordered era he represents. This brings us to Apollo's bow and arrows tools of order, describing his signature armaments not merely as weapons of destruction, but as instruments of divine precision, distant judgment, and the calm imposition of a new cosmic harmony. Imagine shafts of light, tipped with fate, launched with serene accuracy. You see, Apollo, from his rapid maturation on Delos, was immediately associated with the bow and arrow. These were not crude earthly weapons, but divine instruments, often described as being forged in the workshop of Hephaestus the divine smith, or gifted to him by his father Zeus. His arrows were swift, unerring, and could carry either the blessing of healing or the swift judgment of plague. Let's explore the significance of these tools. Precision and accuracy. Apollo is often depicted as an archer of unparalleled skill. His arrows never miss their mark. This precision reflects his role as a god of truth, order, and prophecy. His pronouncements are clear, direct, and accurate, much like his arrows. Unlike the brute force of older gods or the chaotic nature of some primordial beings, Apollo brings a refined, targeted power. Distant strike and unseen judgment. The bow and arrow allow Apollo to strike from a distance, subtly and effectively. This contrasts with close-quarters combat. It symbolizes his ability to deliver divine judgment or healing from afar, often unseen, like a sudden plague that sweeps through a city or a quiet internal healing process. When he aims, there is no escape. Light and clarity. While his arrows are physical projectiles, they are often imbued with his essence of light. Imagine them gleaming as they fly, piercing the darkness much like his prophecies, pierce the veil of the future, bringing clarity to confusion. This aligns with his role as the radiant god pushing back against primordial gloom. Counterpoint to chthonic power. Against the python, a creature of vast crushing coils and earthbound might, Apollo's bow and arrows represent a different kind of power, swiftness, aerial dominance, and remote control. He doesn't need to grapple with the monster in the mud. He can impose his will from a safe, elevated distance, asserting the dominance of Olympian sky-based authority over older earth-based powers. Dual nature, healing and plague. While we're focusing on the defeat of the python, it's important to remember that Apollo, the archer god, also had a dual nature. He was the god of healing and medicine, bringing light and health, but also the god who could send plagues and sudden death with his arrows. This duality is inherent in his tools, capable of both precise construction and precise destruction. When Apollo confronted the python, his poised bow and ready arrows weren't just a threat, they were a statement. They represented a new, more refined, and ultimately more ordered form of divine power that was asserting its authority over the ancient, untamed forces of the world. He was bringing the tools of Olympian order to a primordial, chaotic domain. One quirky tidbit, the twang of Apollo's bowstring, was sometimes said to be as beautiful as the notes from his lyre, subtly blending his martial and artistic attributes. Historians still argue whether the bow and arrow were chosen as Apollo's attributes because of their prevalence in ancient hunting practices, or if they were symbolic of the precise measured nature of his divine pronouncements and his ability to establish boundaries. Either way, they were inseparable from his identity. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the radiant Apollo, his bow in hand, his quiver full of gleaming arrows. These are the tools of quiet order, of precise judgment, ready to bring clarity and a new serene peace to the ancient wild places of the world. The gentle hum of his bowstring is slowly fading now, ushering in your own peaceful oblivion. You've just been introduced to Apollo's signature tools, his bow and arrows, instruments of divine precision and order. Now, as he stands before the colossal primeval python, the moment arrives for the assertion of his new authority, not with a chaotic, drawn-out melee, but with calm, deliberate action. This brings us to the first volley's precise but gentle detailing Apollo's initial measured shots, aimed at subduing rather than annihilating, and notably avoiding undue spectacle or thunderous noise. Imagine silent shafts of light piercing the air, a serene declaration of power. You see Apollo, unlike many of his more impetuous counterparts, or the raw forces of the Titans, was a god of light reason and harmony. His defeat of the python, therefore, was to be a demonstration of controlled, precise power, a methodical assertion of the new Olympian order over the ancient, untamed forces of the earth. He wasn't interested in wanton destruction, but in establishing his claim. So, when Apollo engaged the python, he didn't unleash a furious volley of arrows in a desperate frenzy. Instead, his initial shots were calm, deliberate, and remarkably accurate. Imagine him drawing his shining bow, the string pulled taut with divine strength, and then releasing a single perfect arrow. This wasn't a hail of arrows. It was a measured, almost surgical strike. These first arrows were aimed at strategic points on the python's immense body, designed to wound, to weaken, and to incapacitate rather than to immediately kill. They were like pinpricks to a colossal beast, slowly but surely sapping its strength and breaking its ancient resolve. Perhaps an arrow would strike a scale, not piercing it deeply, but causing a tremor of discomfort. Another might graze a coil, sending a jolt through its vast body, urging it to reconsider its dominion. The focus was on precise, irritating blows that disrupted the python's ancient calm without resorting to the destructive, overwhelming force that Zeus might employ with his thunderbolts. Crucially, this engagement was not described as a loud, chaotic battle. The arrows flew with divine swiftness, perhaps with a soft whisper of air, but without the thunderous impact that might disturb the ancient sanctity of Delphi. The sounds of conflict were muted, reflecting Apollo's inherent nature as a god of harmony and his desire to assert control with a minimum of unnecessary violence or fanfare. The python's eventual defeat would be due to a gradual weakening, not an instantaneous deafening blast. The python, ancient and immense, would respond to these initial volleys with a slow, ponderous awareness, its movements a languid tremor of the earth, its hurls of rock perhaps less directed than those of the hecaton cherries. It was a confrontation of speed and precision against sheer ingrained mass and primeval power. Apollo's calm, persistent, and precise targeting demonstrated that the new order could subdue the old without resorting to its chaotic methods. He was proving that the age of reasoned, directed power had arrived. One quirky tidbit about this initial phase: some versions of the myth suggest that the sheer beauty and radiance of Apollo himself, combined with the precision of his arrows, were enough to inspire a sense of awe and confusion in the ancient python, unsettling its primordial calm. Historians still argue whether the calmness of Apollo's attack reflects a symbolic triumph of order over chaos, or if it's a narrative choice designed to contrast Apollo with other, more overtly violent heroes and gods. Either way, it paints a picture of controlled, serene power. So, as you drift toward sleep, picture the radiant Apollo calmly drawing his bow, sending precise, almost silent arrows towards the colossal python. These initial gentle volleys were a serene declaration of his authority, a quiet, methodical weakening of the ancient guardian, leading towards the peaceful yet inevitable establishment of his radiant oracle at Delphi. The faint whispers of arrows are now fading into the quiet of the night. You've just observed Apollo's initial, precise, and surprisingly gentle volleys against the colossal python, a quiet assertion of the new divine order. Now let's consider the python's reaction to this subtle yet persistent assault. This brings us to the python's response, slow movements, detailing the primeval serpent's ponderous, unhurried reactions to Apollo's deliberate attacks, reflecting its deep connection to the unhurried rhythms of the earth and its ancient ingrained power. Imagine a vast creature stirring with immense slowness, as if the very ground beneath it were awakening. You see, the python was not a swift, agile creature like a smaller snake or a nimble warrior. Born from the primordial mud and deeply intertwined with Gaia's ancient power, Its movements were as vast and deliberate as the shifting of continents or the slow growth of mountains. It embodied inertia, the deep-seated resistance of the old order to the encroachment of the new. So, when Apollo's precise arrows began to strike its immense body, the python's response was not one of frantic agility or sudden furious lunges. Instead, its reactions would have been ponderous, shifting. Imagine the slow, almost imperceptible shifting of its colossal coils, as if a large landmass were subtly rearranging itself. The arrows might cause a tremor, a ripple across its vast scales, but not a sudden violent spasm. Its movements were heavy, deliberate, a testament to its immense size and ancient nature. Deep hissing or rumbling. Rather than a swift, angry strike, the python might respond with a deep, resonant hiss, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very earth, or a low rumble that vibrated through the ground. This was the sound of ancient power stirred, but not easily roused to full fury. Slow counterattacks, if any. If the python lashed out, its attacks would be vast sweeping motions of its tail or a ponderous lunge of its head. These were not quick, targeted strikes, but powerful, wide-arc movements designed to crush or overwhelm anything in its immediate vicinity. The arrows might sting, but they would not provoke a rapid, agile retaliation from such an enormous, slow-moving creature. Resilience and endurance. Its ancient power also meant immense resilience. The arrows, though precise, did not immediately fell it. The python absorbed the blows with the deep, enduring strength of the earth itself. Its response was one of absorbing the damage and slowly, deliberately trying to shrug off this new irritation. The contrast with Apollo's swift, light-infused arrows was striking. Apollo represented the new speed and precision of the Olympian age, while the python embodied the ancient, unhurried pace of the primordial world. The battle, therefore, was less a dynamic duel and more a slow, methodical assertion of one kind of power over another. Apollo chipped away with precision. The python absorbed and responded with the slow, inevitable force of nature. The silence that accompanied much of this struggle further emphasized the python's deliberate nature. Its movements might have caused earth tremors, and its breath might have hissed, but it was not a creature of constant, agitated noise. It was a silent, powerful guardian, reacting with the quiet dignity of immense age. One quirky tidbit about this battle. Some accounts mention the python trying to throw rocks at Apollo, using its sheer bulk to dislodge parts of the mountainside. This would also have been a slow, powerful action, rather than a quick, agile attack, reinforcing its ponderous nature. Historians still argue whether the slow, deliberate nature of the python's response in myths was simply a narrative device to heighten Apollo's precision, or if it reflected an ancient understanding of how older elemental forces react to external stimuli. It certainly made for a less dramatic, more drawn-out, and ultimately more boring battle. So, as you drift toward sleep, picture the colossal python, its vast body slowly stirring, its ancient power responding with ponderous, unhurried movements to the radiant arrows of Apollo. This slow, deliberate dance between old and new power marked the gradual, peaceful weakening of the primeval guardian, bringing the ancient oracle of Delphi closer to its new serene and gloriously boring Olympian master. The earth is shifting slowly now. You've just felt the slow, ponderous movements of the colossal python reacting with ancient inertia to Apollo's precise initial volleys. This deliberate response, far from a frantic struggle, highlights a key aspect of Apollo's character in this encounter, his calm, methodical approach. This brings us to Apollo's patience. A steady hand, detailing his unwavering composure and strategic persistence in the face of immense ancient power, demonstrating a different kind of heroism, one built on serene determination rather than impetuous fury. Imagine a god perfectly calm, systematically wearing down a formidable foe. You see, unlike some other Greek heroes or gods who might rush into battle with reckless abandon, like a young Hercules or Ares, Apollo embodies a more refined, ordered approach to power. His attributes, light music, reason, and prophecy, all speak to clarity, harmony, and control. These qualities were fully on display in his confrontation with the python. Apollo did not engage in a messy, close-quarters grappling match. He did not lose his temper or allow himself to be frustrated by the python's immense resilience or its slow, almost indifferent responses. Instead, he maintained a perfect, serene composure. Methodical targeting. He continued to loose his arrows, one after another, with unwavering precision. Each shot was carefully aimed, building upon the last, systematically weakening the vast serpent. There was no wasted motion, no frantic energy. It was a methodical process of deconstruction, slowly dismantling the python's ancient power. Unwavering focus. Despite the python's immense size and potential terror, Apollo remained singularly focused on his task. His divine will was unshakable, his purpose clear to claim Delphi and establish his oracle. This focus allowed him to maintain his calm, avoiding any impulsive actions that might derail his objective. Distant engagement. His use of the bow and arrow allowed him to keep a safe distance, maintaining a strategic separation from the python's crushing coils and potential noxious fumes. This detached approach further reinforced his composure as he wasn't directly exposed to the chaos and physical danger of a close combat. Symbol of new order. His patience in this encounter underscored the nature of the new Olympian order he represented. It was an order built not just on brute strength or primordial chaos, but on intelligence, foresight, and a disciplined application of power. He was bringing clarity and structure to a wild, ancient world, and his calm demeanor was a reflection of this civilizing force. Endurance and persistence. The defeat of the python was not instantaneous. It was a process of wearing down an immensely powerful, resilient creature. Apollo's patience allowed him to endure the prolonged engagement, steadily applying pressure until the ancient power finally succumbed. This serene, methodical approach is characteristic of Apollo. He is a god who prefers harmony and order, and even in conflict, he seeks to achieve his goals with a measured, deliberate touch. His patience was a powerful weapon, as effective as any thunderbolt against a foe whose strength lay in its ancient, unyielding presence. One quirky tidbit: some depictions of Apollo in this myth show him playing his lyre even as he approached or engaged the python, suggesting that the very harmony of his music contributed to the unsettling of the ancient creature and the assertion of his calm authority. Historians still argue whether Apollo's calm defeat of the python reflects a narrative desire to make him seem more refined than other monster-slaying heroes, or if it symbolizes the intellectual triumph of a new ordered cosmology over older, wilder, and less predictable forces. Either way, his composure in the face of such a colossal beast is remarkable. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the radiant Apollo standing with perfect composure, drawing his bow with a steady hand and systematically, patiently delivering arrow after arrow to the immense, ancient python. His calm persistence is slowly, gently subduing the primeval guardian, bringing the chaotic elements of the world into a new, serene, and gloriously boring Olympian harmony. The last vestiges of ancient struggle are fading into quietude now. You've just admired Apollo's unwavering patience and steady hand as he meticulously delivered his arrows to the colossal python. Now, let's observe the inevitable consequence of this calm, persistent assault on such an ancient, vast creature. This brings us to the serpent's decline. Gentle weakening, detailing the gradual, undramatic weakening of the python, a slow sapping of its primeval strength that led to its quiet submission rather than a sudden violent demise. Imagine the immense coils, once vibrant with ancient power, slowly losing their vigor, gently settling into stillness. You see, because Apollo's attacks were characterized by precision and methodical application rather than overwhelming explosive force, the python's decline was equally unhurried. It was a slow process of attrition, a methodical unraveling of its ancient power rather than an instantaneous collapse. Sapping of vitality, each precise arrow, though perhaps not immediately fatal, slowly drained the python's immense vitality. Imagine its primordial energy, derived from the very earth, being subtly, persistently siphoned away with each hit. Its vast body, once pulsating with raw power, would begin to feel heavier, less responsive. Languid movements. As its strength diminished, the python's already ponderous movements would become even more languid, less purposeful. Its great coils might stir less frequently, its hiss might grow fainter, its attempts to lash out, becoming slower and more easily dodged. It was like watching a vast ancient river slowly lose its current, becoming a calm, placid lake. Loss of resilience. The python's inherent resilience, its ability to absorb and shrug off blows, would gradually weaken. The arrows, which initially caused mere tremors, would now find a slightly deeper purchase, causing more profound discomfort and sapping more energy. The ancient skin, once impenetrable, might begin to show subtle signs of wear. Internal disturbance. While its body was immense, the cumulative effect of Apollo's precise strikes would create an internal disarray, disrupting its primeval connection to the Earth's energies. It wouldn't be a catastrophic injury, but a pervasive, systemic weakening that slowly rendered it incapable of sustaining its formidable presence. Yielding to new order. Ultimately, the python's gentle weakening was also a symbolic yielding to the new ordered power Apollo represented. It wasn't about being violently annihilated. It was about its ancient wild energy being subdued and brought under the control of a more refined celestial authority. Its decline reflected the natural, or rather divinely orchestrated progression from primordial chaos to Olympian harmony. The battle wasn't punctuated by loud roars of agony or dramatic death throes. The python's weakening was a quiet affair, a subtle lessening of its immense vitality, until its resistance simply faded away. This undramatic decline further emphasizes the serene, almost effortless imposition of Apollo's will over the ancient guardian. He wasn't conquering through brute force, but through the persistent application of precise, ordered power. One quirky tidbit about this phase. Some myths imply that as the python weakened, the very vapors from the chasm at Delphi might have become calmer, more amenable to interpretation, signifying the shift from the wild, untamed prophecies of Gaia to the clearer, more structured pronouncements of Apollo. Historians still argue whether the peaceful nature of the python's defeat in myth reflects a conscious attempt to de-emphasize violence in Apollo's rise, or if it symbolizes the integration of older chthonic powers into the new Olympian order rather than their complete destruction. Either way, the gentle weakening is a key part of the narrative. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the colossal python, its vast coils slowly losing their immense power, its primeval strength gently sapped by Apollo's precise, persistent arrows. This quiet, undramatic decline marked the peaceful submission of the ancient guardian, ushering in the calm, serene reign of the new god of light and prophecy over the world's most sacred oracle. The last vestiges of ancient power are gently fading now, and stillness deepens around you. You've just observed the gradual, gentle weakening of the colossal python, its primeval energy slowly sapped by Apollo's calm, persistent arrows. Now the moment arrives for the final assertion of Apollo's authority, not with a thunderous explosion of force, but with a precise, almost anticlimactic act that signifies the peaceful transition of power. This brings us to the final arrow, quiet victory, detailing the precise, undramatic shot that definitively ends the conflict, solidifying Apollo's claim over Delphi without unnecessary fanfare or cosmic upheaval. Imagine a single perfect arrow piercing the air and bringing an immense ancient being to a quiet rest. You see, after the prolonged period of the python's gentle weakening, its immense ancient power finally began to wane beyond recovery. Its vast coils lay more still. Its movements grew sluggish, and its ability to resist had faded. The python, embodying the old, untamed order, had slowly, inexorably yielded to the new, radiant authority. At this point, Apollo, ever the precise archer, delivered the decisive blow. He didn't need a flurry of arrows or a burst of overwhelming power. He simply drew his shining bow one last time. Imagine the tautness of the string, the perfect alignment of his eye, and the quiet release. A single perfectly aimed arrow flew through the air, piercing the python's immense, weakened body. The effect was not a dramatic explosion or a drawn-out death throw. Instead, the python simply succumbed. Its colossal form would have settled, perhaps, with a final slow tremor into a profound stillness. The ancient guardian, once so formidable, gently ceased its existence, its primordial energy returning to the earth from which it sprang. It was a death marked by quiet finality, an end to a long, slow struggle. The location of the python's demise is significant. In many accounts, Apollo slew the python directly at the site of Delphi, right by the sacred chasm and the Omphalos stone. This ensured that its defeat was immediately linked to his claim over the oracle. The act of the python's body settling at Delphi, some myths say its body decomposed there, causing noxious fumes that Apollo then purged, firmly established Apollo's authority over the site. This quiet victory was a powerful symbol for the new Olympian order. It demonstrated that Zeus's chosen god of light could establish dominance not through brute chaotic force, but through precision order and a calm, methodical application of power. It was a contrast to the thunderous battles of the Titanomachy. Here, a more refined, less violent transition of cosmic authority was enacted. Apollo brought peace through decisive yet understated action. The absence of a dramatic, noisy death also allowed for a smoother integration of the site. Apollo didn't utterly obliterate the ancient power. He subdued it and then claimed its essence for his own, transforming a primordial oracle into the most renowned center of prophecy for the Olympian age. One quirky tidbit: the very act of a young radiant god defeating an ancient chthonic serpent is a common motif across various mythologies, often symbolizing the triumph of order over chaos or civilization over wilderness. Historians still argue whether the peaceful nature of the python's demise in later accounts was a deliberate attempt to sanitize Apollo's early actions, or if it genuinely reflected an ancient Greek understanding of subtle power transitions. Either way, it marked the end of an era. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the final quiet arrow loosed with serene precision, bringing the colossal python to its final peaceful rest at Delphi. This undramatic yet definitive victory cemented Apollo's calm reign over the world's most sacred oracle, ushering in an era of orderly prophecy and undisturbed tranquility. The last echoes of ancient struggle are now completely silent, allowing for a deep, boring oblivion to settle. You've just witnessed the precise, quiet victory of Apollo over the colossal python, a serene act that ended the serpent's ancient dominion at Delphi. But the defeat of such a primeval chthonic being did not mean its complete erasure. Instead, the ancient Greeks, with their nuanced understanding of cosmic power, allowed for a subtle integration, acknowledging the lingering presence of older forces, even under a new reign. This brings us to chthonic echoes, Earth's acceptance, discussing how the defeat of the python subtly incorporated elements of the old order into Apollo's new domain, allowing the Earth's ancient whispers to resonate in a new, harmonized form. Imagine the deep, resonant power of the Earth now speaking through a new, clearer voice. You see Apollo, as the radiant god of light and order, was establishing a new era of prophecy at Delphi. His pronouncements would be clear, precise, and structured, reflecting his own nature. However, the site itself, the omphalos, and the chasm from which prophecies emanated were fundamentally chthonic, tied to the deep earth, to Gaia's ancient power. Apollo did not destroy this inherent earthiness. He subsumed it, bringing its ancient wisdom under his Olympian authority. This integration manifested in several ways. The Pythoness, Pythia, the priestess of Apollo at Delphi, who delivered his prophecies, was known as the Pythia. This name is a direct linguistic inheritance from the python, the very serpent Apollo defeated. It acknowledges the python's ancient connection to the site's prophetic power. The Pythia sat on a tripod over the chasm, inhaling vapors believed to come from the earth, and delivered prophecies that, while from Apollo, still carried the resonant primal energy of the ground beneath. It was as if the python's ancient breath was now channeled through Apollo's divine inspiration. Continued earthly associations. Despite Apollo's solar and Olympian attributes, Delphi retained its strong connection to the earth. The sacred spring of Castalia, the very rock formations, and the overall atmosphere of the site continued to evoke its ancient geological origins. Apollo's light did not banish the darkness of the chthonic. It illuminated it, bringing its secrets into clearer view. The serpent as a symbolic guardian. While the python itself was vanquished, the image of the serpent often continued to be a symbolic guardian of the Delphic oracle, appearing in art and iconography at the site. It represented the integrated older power, now peacefully serving under Apollo's dominion, a testament to his ability to incorporate rather than simply destroy. The serpent's wisdom, once wild, was now part of the ordered prophecy. Folk beliefs. Even as Apollo's cult flourished, local folk beliefs and rituals connected to the earth's fertility and ancient spirits likely continued in subtle ways around Delphi, showing that the reverence for Gaia's primordial power lingered. This subtle acceptance and integration of the chthonic echoes into Apollo's new reign distinguished him from, say, Zeus's more brutal imprisonment of the Titans in Tartarus. Apollo's triumph was one of transformation and assimilation, a gentle reordering of existing forces, allowing the old to serve the new in harmony. It signified a sophisticated understanding of power dynamics, where wisdom recognized that some ancient forces are better integrated than utterly destroyed. One quirky tidbit: some myths say Apollo founded the Pythian Games, which we'll discuss soon, specifically to celebrate his victory over the Python, turning a site of primordial terror into one of ordered, athletic, and artistic competition, further solidifying the triumph of Olympian harmony. Historians still argue whether the integration of chthonic elements into Apollo's cult was a deliberate syncretism to appeal to existing local beliefs, or if it genuinely reflected a Greek theological understanding of evolving divine power where new gods drew strength from the old. Either way, the ancient spirit of the earth continued to whisper at Delphi, albeit in a newly harmonized voice. So, as you drift towards sleep, imagine the immense ancient power of the Python, gently settling into stillness, its chthonic energy becoming a resonant echo within Apollo's vibrant oracle. The earth, accepting its new master, now speaks with a clear, calm voice, a testament to the peaceful integration of old and new, ushering you into a profound, boring, and utterly harmonious slumber. The ground beneath you feels steady, ancient, and peaceful. You've just felt the subtle integration of the Python's chthonic echoes into Apollo's new Delphic order, a testament to the Earth's acceptance of its new master. To further commemorate this pivotal shift from primeval chaos to Olympian harmony, Apollo established a series of events that would become one of the cornerstones of Greek civilization, notably devoid of overt violence. This brings us to the Pythian Games commemoration, not conquest, detailing the establishment of these athletic and artistic competitions, celebrating Apollo's serene victory and promoting orderly achievement rather than brutal force. Imagine the solemn processions, the graceful contests, and the melodic hymns, all designed to honor a quiet, decisive triumph. You see, after Apollo's calm defeat of the Python, he sought to memorialize this victory and solidify his claim over Delphi in a manner befitting his own radiant, orderly nature. Unlike the bloody, frantic nature of many monster-slaying tales, Apollo's triumph was about the assertion of refined power and the establishment of divine order. Thus, he founded the Pythian Games Pythia. These games were held every 4 years at Delphi, 2 years before and 2 years after the Olympic Games, making them one of the 4 Panhellenic Games alongside the Olympics, Isthmian, and Nemean Games. They were a major cultural and religious event drawing participants and spectators from across the Greek world. The nature of the Pythian Games reflected Apollo's divine attributes. Athletic contests, like the Olympics, they included various athletic competitions such as foot races, wrestling, boxing, discus throw, and javelin throw. These showcased human physical prowess, but within a structured, rule-bound context, reflecting Apollo's love for order and disciplined excellence. Imagine the quiet tension of the starting line, the measured breaths of the athletes, and the rhythmic pounding of feet on the track, all in honor of a calm god. Artistic and musical competitions. This was the unique and defining feature of the Pythian Games, setting them apart from the more purely athletic Olympics. Apollo was the god of music, poetry, and arts, and these games heavily emphasized contests in playing the kithara, a type of lyre with singing, flute playing, poetry recitation, dramatic performances, even painting and sculpture in some periods. This focus on artistic harmony and intellectual achievement underscored the nature of Apollo's victory over the wild, inarticulate power of the python. It was a triumph of culture over chaos, of melody over the serpent's hiss. Commemoration, not conquest. The games were a commemoration of Apollo's victory, a peaceful celebration of a new era rather than a reenactment of brutal conquest. The python was not reviled or actively fought in the games. Its defeat was transmuted into an occasion for human excellence and divine harmony. The prize for victors was not a material reward, but a simple laurel wreath, a symbol of Apollo connecting the achievement directly to the god. The establishment of these games reinforced Apollo's new authority at Delphi, turning a site once governed by a primordial serpent into a vibrant center of human achievement and divine inspiration. It also served to solidify Greek identity through shared cultural and religious practices. One quirky tidbit: the very first Pythian Games were supposedly purely musical, with the athletic contests added later, further emphasizing the importance of Apollo's artistic domain. Historians still argue whether the Pythian Games were primarily a way to legitimize Apollo's cult at Delphi through grand spectacle, or if they genuinely reflected an evolving Greek ideal of heroism that valued intellectual and artistic prowess alongside physical strength. Either way, they represented a significant shift. So, as you drift towards sleep, picture the serene scene of the Pythian Games at Delphi, athletes striving with quiet determination, musicians filling the air with harmonious melodies, all beneath the watchful eye of Apollo. This commemoration of a peaceful triumph over ancient chaos brought forth an era of ordered excellence, ensuring that the legacy of Delphi was one of serene truth and harmonious achievement rather than violent conquest. The soft strains of the lyre are now gently fading into your peaceful oblivion. You've just witnessed the elegant establishment of the Pythian games, transforming Delphi into a center of harmonious competition, a serene commemoration of Apollo's victory over the Python. With the monster defeated and the games founded, the final piece of Apollo's dominance at Delphi fell into place, the establishment of his direct pervasive influence over the site's prophecies. This brings us to the Oracle of Delphi, a new voice, detailing how Apollo firmly established his famous prophetic sanctuary, transforming the ancient chthonic whispers into clear Apollonian pronouncements that would guide the Greek world for centuries. Imagine the vast stream of seekers flocking to this sacred site, desperate for a word from the god of light and truth. You see, while Delphi had been an oracle of Gaia and Themis, in ancient times Apollo now firmly claimed it as his own. His victory over the Python symbolized the assertion of Olympian order over older, wilder forces, and his establishment meant that the prophecies emanating from the Omphalos would now reflect his particular nature, clarity, reason, and divine insight. The heart of the Delphic oracle was the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo. Chosen from the local women, she would undergo rituals of purification before entering the Adyton, the inner sanctuary of Apollo's temple. There, she would sit upon a tripod, positioned over a fissure in the earth from which mysterious vapors, perhaps ethylene gas, or simply the psychological effects of the sacred space, were believed to emanate. As the Pythia inhaled these vapors, she would enter a trance-like state, becoming a conduit for Apollo's divine inspiration. Pilgrims and petitioners, having paid their fees and offered their sacrifices, would then present their questions to the Pythia. Her responses, though sometimes cryptic or ambiguous, requiring interpretation by the temple priests, the prophetai, were considered the direct words of Apollo, imbued with his truth and foresight. The pronouncements of the Delphic oracle guided the Greek world for centuries, influencing every aspect of life. Political decisions. City-states would consult the oracle before going to war, founding new colonies, or establishing new laws. The oracle's advice was highly valued, and its pronouncements could sway the fate of entire nations. Personal life. Individuals sought guidance on matters of marriage, travel, business, and health. The oracle offered a sense of divine direction in a complex and unpredictable world. Religious practice. The oracle would advise on proper religious rituals, interpretations of omens, and the establishment of new cults, further cementing Apollo's authority. The fame of the oracle spread far and wide, making Delphi a pilgrimage site of immense importance. Imagine the solemn processions of citizens bearing offerings, making their way to the temple, patiently waiting for a chance to receive a word from the god. The very journey to Delphi became an act of spiritual preparation. Apollo's establishment of the oracle brought a new kind of prophecy to the world. Unlike the raw, untamed utterances of the primordial earth, Apollo's prophecies, while still mysterious, often hinted at a clearer, more rational, divine plan. He was a god of light revealing truths, even if subtly veiled to those who sought them with a pure heart. One quirky tidbit to prepare for their prophetic duties: the Pythia would sometimes chew laurel leaves, Apollo's sacred tree, or drink from the Castalian spring, believing these acts enhanced their connection to the god's divine inspiration. Historians still argue whether the Pythia's trance was genuinely induced by geological gases, or if it was a ritualistic performance augmented by psychological suggestion and the profound belief of the supplicants. Either way, the oracle's influence was undeniable. So, as you drift toward sleep, picture the serene temple at Delphi, the Pythia, uttering her soft prophetic words, channeling the clear, luminous truth of Apollo. This new voice, arising from the ancient heart of the earth, brought order and guidance to the Greek world, ensuring that even the most profound truths could be delivered gently, leading to a deep, peaceful, and utterly boring slumber under Apollo's watchful, knowing gaze. The last prophecies are now quietly fading from the air. You've just witnessed the establishment of Apollo's renowned oracle at Delphi, its clear pronouncements guiding the Greek world for centuries. With the Python subdued, the games founded, and his prophetic voice firmly established, Apollo truly ushered in a new era of divine rule. This brings us to harmony and order, Apollo's new reign, reflecting on the peaceful, structured nature of his dominion at Delphi and his broader influence on the cosmos, representing a significant shift from the wilder, more chaotic forces of the ancient world to a more civilized and harmonious divine presence. Imagine a world imbued with a sense of calm, where celestial music provides the backdrop to a predictable, ordered existence. You see, Apollo, unlike some other deities, embodies a multifaceted array of domains that all coalesce around the themes of harmony, order, and clarity. His victory at Delphi was not just a territorial claim. It was a symbolic assertion of these principles over the untamed primeval forces. God of music and arts, Apollo is the master of the lyre, associated with poetry, song, and dance. His presence brought artistic harmony to the cosmos. Imagine the celestial spheres resonating with his soothing melodies, a constant, gentle lullaby for the universe. This aspect of his reign represents beauty and measured expression, a counterpoint to the raucousness of earlier, more elemental gods. God of light and truth. His association with light meant he dispelled darkness, both literal and metaphorical. His prophecies were meant to bring truth and understanding, illuminating the path forward. This clarity brought intellectual and spiritual order, replacing the sometimes confusing or terrifying ambiguity of older oracles. He was the force that made things clear, even if not always easy, God of healing and medicine. While Asclepius was the primary healing god, Apollo was his father and the ultimate source of healing. His influence brought balance and restoration to the body, a gentle, systematic approach to well-being that mirrored his ordered nature. He was not about violent cures, but about harmonious restoration. God of divine law and order, Apollo was seen as a lawgiver advocating for measure balance and moderation. The famous maxims at Delphi, "Know thyself," and "Nothing in excess," encapsulated his philosophy of balanced living and rational thought. This was a god who encouraged temperance and self-control, aiming for a universe that operated with predictable, reassuring rules. His establishment at Delphi transformed the site into a beacon of this new harmony. The Pythian Games, with their emphasis on both athletic and artistic excellence, perfectly embodied his ideals of disciplined achievement. The Pythia's prophecies, though delivered in trance, were interpreted by priests seeking clarity and practical guidance, reflecting Apollo's pursuit of comprehensible truth. This gentle, yet firm imposition of order brought a profound sense of stability to the Greek world. It was a step away from the raw, unpredictable power of earlier chthonic beings and towards a more structured, predictable, divine presence. Apollo's reign at Delphi represented a microcosm of the larger Olympian order established by Zeus, a world where reason, light, and harmony were becoming the guiding principles. One quirky tidbit about Apollo's influence: some sources say he taught humanity the art of medicine and music, directly emphasizing his role as a civilizing force, bringing beneficial order to mankind after the wilder, primordial ages. Historians still argue whether Apollo's character as a god of harmony was a deliberate theological evolution, reflecting Greek society's increasing sophistication, or if it was a natural development from his solar attributes, where light inherently brought order. Either way, his reign symbolized peace. So, as you drift toward sleep, imagine the tranquil influence of Apollo, bringing harmony and order to the cosmos. His serene light gently bathes the world. His melodies soothe the air, and his wisdom guides with quiet clarity. In this era of balanced, peaceful divine rule, even the most profound truths unfold gently, leading you into a deep, serene, and gloriously boring oblivion. The harmony of the universe is now your lullaby. You've explored the enduring reign of Apollo, basking in the harmony and order he brought to Delphi, and the wider cosmos, a testament to the triumph of clear light over ancient chaos. We've journeyed from the primordial void to the organized pantheon, witnessing the quiet defeat of a formidable serpent and the establishment of a prophetic voice that guided a civilization. Now, as our gentle, mythic journey draws to its complete and final close, it's time for you to fully embrace the deep sleep of Delphi's peace, an invitation to profound and undisturbed slumber imbued with the serene, orderly tranquility of Apollo's perfected domain. Imagine, if you will, that you are now lying at the heart of Delphi itself, not in its noisy, bustling heyday, but in its quietest, most peaceful moments. The sacred chasm beneath you murmurs softly, not with wild, untamed vapors, but with the gentle, reassuring breath of the earth, now calm and harmonious under Apollo's sway. The distant strains of a celestial lyre played by Apollo himself drift on an unseen breeze, a melody of perfect order and serene beauty that lulls every restless thought. The sun has set, but in this sacred space, Apollo's radiant light still subtly permeates the air, a soft golden glow that banishes any lingering shadows of fear or chaos. There are no more ancient monsters to fear, no more primordial forces to battle. The python rests in its eternal stillness, its immense power integrated into the very essence of the oracle, now a quiet, deep root for Apollo's clear truth. Feel the profound sense of peace settle around you. The wisdom of Delphi, once cryptic and wild, now flows with the quiet clarity of a mountain spring. The prophecies have been delivered, the games concluded, the harmony established. All is in its rightful place, balanced and serene, inviting absolute rest. Your mind, once perhaps racing with the day's concerns, now begins to clear, becoming as open and receptive as the inner sanctuary of the Delphic oracle. Allow the final echoes of our story to fade completely. The struggles of gods, the conflicts of ancient powers, the grand narratives of myth, all are now settled, resolved into a state of profound, unchanging quietude. There is nothing left to fight, nothing left to seek, no more answers to pursue. Only the deep, consistent, boring peace that Apollo brought to the world. Let go of any remaining tension in your body, any lingering thoughts in your mind. Feel the reassuring weight of gravity holding you gently in place. Your breath becomes a soft, rhythmic tide, pulling you deeper and deeper into the calm waters of oblivion. The perfect order of Apollo's reign is now your lullaby, a silent promise of undisturbed rest. You are drifting effortlessly into the profound stillness. The radiant peace of Delphi's ancient heart now envelops you completely. All is quiet. All is well. You are ready for the deepest, most wonderfully boring sleep imaginable. Sweet dreams.